Welcome to the Better Agent Podcast. If you're a real estate agent that's looking to grow your business, then you're in the right place. Whether you want to go from 5 to 10 transactions a year, or 10 to 50 transactions per year, or more, well, then this show is for you. I'm Josh Lavik, your host for the Better Agent Podcast, and in each episode, we'll bring you the tools, tips, and tricks directly from myself and some of the best leaders within the real estate industry. We have one goal in mind, and that's to boost your production and elevate your real estate game. Let's dive in and start creating a better real estate experience together. Welcome back to the Better Agent Podcast. Again, we're talking about growth in your real estate business. Our goal in this podcast, again, is to have people on the show and that can talk about their growth journey, whether it's from 5 transactions to 10 or 10 to 20 or 20 to 50 or whatever it might be for you, but trying to share some of my insight and wisdom over the last 20 years in the real estate business, and then also bring on valuable guests that have lots of great things that they can share as well. I'm really excited about our guest today. We have Colin Schindler, and he's a great agent, team leader, also very successful agent, did 32 deals in his first year. So that's more than I did in my first year, that's for sure. And, it definitely speaks volumes, I think, to, what is possible in your first year even, right? I mean, if you're sort of driven and motivated and ready to go, share with our listeners today a little bit, Colin, a little bit more about yourself and your journey and kind of what got you started in real estate and what brings you here today.
Yeah. So I, kind of was always one of those young hustlers, and thank you for having me on, by the way, and reaching out. I love doing
Yeah. Thanks for coming on the show.
Selfishly, obviously, for promotion, content for myself, and also like part of my goal, and a large part of my goal is to help inspire other people the way that I've been inspired, because I've always been an inspired and driven individual. And it takes learning from other people and hearing different stories and different strategies to help you get to where you're going. So I appreciate you having me on and allowing me to share my story as well. I was always, a young hustler and entrepreneur, from the time that I could walk behind a lawnmower. I, borrowed my parents and walked the neighborhood and knocked on people's doors and, tried to mow their lawns or grabbed a shovel in the winter, and even kind of started up my own little business, handed out flyers. And
so is that what you did before real estate? You were mowing lawns and then just decided to pivot?
That was high school and college and that kind of stuff. So, I handed out flyers and even got a notice from the post office one time that, hey, you can't put non-posted mail in people's mailboxes. Just a heads up. We didn't pull them this time because you're probably, 15 years old, which I was, but you can't do that.
Yeah, right. You got to pay the postage. The post office needs their revenue.
Dang. So, I developed 10 to 15 clients that I worked for consistently every single summer throughout high school.
Awesome.
And continued that through college and whatnot. And then when I went to college, I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I had interests in firefighting before I went to college, but decided to go a little bit more professional route. I was hired by Edward Jones to be a financial advisor. My aunt is a longtime financial advisor with them, and she loves what she does. She's a very personable, outgoing person, and we're very similar in a lot of aspects when it comes to our personality. And it's like, hey, she's built a very successful business. She's like me in her outgoing and charismatic ways. Like, this should be something that I should do. So I graduated college, was hired by Edward Jones, started studying for Series 7, Series 66, decided that wasn't quite for me. So I got into firefighting, back into firefighting a little bit. And then I decided I wanted to live in reverse retirement. So I was not ready for any type of real commitment. So I ran off to the mountains and lived in Colorado for about a year and a half, spanning over 2 ski seasons, and kind of got that itch out. And I was a banquet server.
At which area?
I lived in Vail.
Okay.
So when I got hired by Edward Jones, they let me do a backpacking trip. Instead of starting right away, I went on a 6-week backpacking trip. And over that trip, prior to even studying for the Series 7 and Series 66, which I ended up having no interest in, prior to that, I was like, I don't know if this is what I want to do, because I'm not going to be able to do things like this. So, I kind of took off, and I worked in the banquet industry, which a lot of hours, but also a lot of hours off. And you could run around and ski and hike, especially when you have the Rocky Mountains as your playground in your backyard.
Sure.
And I worked with some great folks, and some of the folks that I worked with were in their 70s and still hustling, and they were awesome and living their dream. But I decided that, that wasn't quite for me. I needed to find a balance where I could make the type of money that I wanted to make, where I wouldn't be able to, or I wouldn't have to work, my entire life. Just kind of being able to drop out of that hustle and grind at some point, I realized was going to be very important to me, which, prior to moving out there, and even when I first moved out there, I was like, who cares? I'll work where I can and when I can, and be flexible till the day that I die. As long as I can fund my activities and have fun doing it. I don't need an IRA. I don't ever need to retire. I enjoy working. So let's do it.
So I need to pause here just a minute, because your story is eerily similar to my story. I don't know if you know much about this, but I grew up in Wisconsin, lived in the Madison area most of my life, but I also decided, the heck with this, I need to go to the mountains. And I went west, also went to Colorado. I was in Summit County originally, so Keystone, Breckenridge, also ended up in Vail, worked in Beaver Creek. I was there for 3 years though, but I do remember very much a lot of the people, like you said, they're in their 70s or 50s, 60s, 70s, whatever, and still working part-time seasonal work as banquet servers or waiting tables or whatever it might be. And so it is kind of a hard place, I think, to make it kind of long term. I think a lot of the wealth up there probably wasn't made up there, right? I mean, people that are buying these multi-million-dollar ski homes, are majority of them, I'm thinking, made their money elsewhere, not necessarily just by waiting tables or being a banquet server or whatnot. Yeah. So it's kind of an interesting shift in dynamic. But I hear you. I love the mountains myself, and love getting outside and hiking and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of a cool background similarity that we have.
Yeah, especially since it's I feel like a lot of people probably share our same sentiment, not necessarily the same area, but folks like us, we like to try things and take chances and go. But so it's interesting though that our journeys were very close, within a line of each other.
I know, that is kind of interesting. And then, so what led you to real estate? So because you're in the Beloit market, right? Or Southern Wisconsin? Okay.
South Wisconsin, and then Northern Illinois as well. Okay. So being right on the border there, we do both. So I moved back, and again, I feel like maybe it seems like, oh wow, you're better than a banquet server. Well, if that's what you want to do, and that's heck yeah, those 50, 60, 70-year-olds that I worked with, happy as could be.
Happy as can be.
Nothing wrong with that. I just realized that it wasn't for me, and I also miss my family and friends back home too. And I was broke. Like you said, the dynamic out there. You're either very well off or you're very poor, and
that is true.
You have money to fund your hobbies, and so I didn't get to come back and see my friends and family. So I realized I needed to do something else and be closer to friends and family. So I moved back. I wasn't entirely sure what I was going to do. I was always very interested in real estate and investing in real estate, especially. And my parents were always like, "You'd be a great real estate agent." So I was like, "Yeah, sure. you should talk to so and so, our high school friends." And I was like, "Yeah, sure." I hit up my old hockey coach, Otis Johnson. That's an Otis Johnson. And just to check in and see what he was doing. He was always a really great mentor to me and pushed me really hard. I wasn't the best hockey player, but I just worked harder than everyone else. And he pushed me to work harder and get better and progress. I still sucked, but I came a long way. So I hit him up, and he had just opened a RE/MAX franchise. So we had some pancakes, and I talked to him about becoming a real estate agent, and went home and signed up and started taking my classes that morning to become a real estate agent. And the rest is history, right?
And the rest is history. It's so interesting. I think, the importance of what I heard too is you were curious about it, and you were, I think there's a lot of people out there, a lot of listeners probably, that maybe are thinking about in real estate, or maybe they've just got licensed and are starting, but not really getting enough momentum. But I think, you had the courage to kind of go out there, seek a mentor, seek someone else that can help guide you, help provide a roadmap to what it could be. And, to come out of the gate with 32 sales in your first year is no small feat. I mean, I know there's agents out there that, do 100 sales a year or whatever, and that's fine. But when the national average is 6 or 7, your first year, that's substantially higher. And I think that's something to say. And I think there's an important lesson that I hear that I resonate with too is seeking out mentors and coaches and things like that can help guide you. I didn't play hockey. I was a wrestler through high school, and I wrestled 3 years in college, and maybe I had a similar sort of, I don't know, competitive mindset and sort of tenacity that it takes to succeed in that type of sport. But I think there are some similarities in that sense that, if you can tap into that same kind of mindset that would make you a successful hockey player or wrestler or whatever it is in your sports, I think a lot of that does translate to real estate. And there's plenty of agents that I can think of right off the top of my head that had done really well in sports and then also have translated that into a successful real estate career. So if that is someone's background, I think that's a good pathway and a good segue, because in many, many ways, right, we need a coach, we need a guide, a mentor, we need people to help guide us. But at the end of the day, it's also up to you to take that shot, right? To go for it, to put your content out there, to put your marketing plan together, to make those calls, to go on those appointments, to do whatever you got to do to really be successful. And I think that, at the end of the day, it is about you, but I think surrounding yourself with other people that can help guide you, push you, and mentor you, I think is a super critical part of being successful in this business. I know that's what I've felt over the years as well. So, but very cool. But I am curious about something else that you had mentioned, and we talked a little bit about this before starting our podcast, but I wanted to talk a little bit about burnout, right? Because you were guns a-blazing, and if you're a successful agent and you're listening to this and you're a highly successful agent, you've probably felt some kind of burnout at some point in your career, right? This is the kind of business that, yeah, great, I don't have a boss. There's nobody there to tell me what to do, but I can also have people, this is a business where you can work 24/7 if you allow it. And I think it's kind of hard to really put boundaries on or limits on maybe your hours or when you work or when you're available for clients. Let's talk about burnout. Let's talk about what have you experienced in burnout in your own career, and what have you done to address that?
Yeah, for sure. So, I went from 32 to 50 some to just short of 70 transactions, 68 to 70 transactions every year since then. In the beginning, it's not burnout, it's just pure adrenaline. And if you're one of those people like we're talking about where, you have that competitive edge, that's your mindset. It's go time, and you are here and should be here to outwork every single other person. You have to be creative. You have to do other things as well, but pure hard work has to get you there. So, it's going to sound kind of probably not clinically correct, but depending on what you want and what your goals are, you're going to have to burn yourself out. You are going to have to let the scales get out of balance. I've always told myself that balance is not necessarily like a day-by-day thing, a week-by-week thing, a month-by-month thing. Balance isn't even necessarily a year-by-year thing. And if it's not your goal to sell 70 homes a year by yourself as a solo agent, that's totally fine. You don't need to do that. But if you're like, this is what I want to crush it, I want to be number one in my marketplace, or, at least top 10, you're going to have to get yourself to a point of burnout so that you're getting your name out there, you're working hard, you're hustling, and you're learning the industry inside and out. So, in the beginning, it doesn't feel like burnout, and you eventually get to that point. And I think it's important to realize once you're there and start to implement things to do it. But I think that there's this misconception, and I don't want to take away future questions because I know we've kind of talked about this before, but there's this really big misconception in any business industry that, you just get to step in and you get to delegate and you can run this thing seamlessly and you're going to be a top producer and you're going to have everybody do all your hard stuff underneath you. That's not the case. I think that it can be, the very small percentage of realtors that actually make it, okay? And then there's probably an even much smaller percentage of people who just start off as a team lead and are able to grow and scale this rapid thing with no pain along the way. I think that you're gonna have to experience some pain. You're gonna have to burn yourself out, and you're gonna have to, grit your teeth and sprint to the finish, to try and beat everybody else, so that you can then get to that point where you're going to start delegating things. You're going to start figuring it out.
Burn yourself out. Just go for it. Burn the boats and go for it. Yeah. I think, I have a similar path as well. I mean, I did start and at a little bit further behind, but I think, I had been we've had a small team of, 3 to 7 agents on our team for a long time. And we've been doing, 30 to 80 transactions a year for several years. But I think one thing that I found is once I got to kind of that 30-ish transaction mark, like for me, that was the time absolutely to hire some type of administrative help, transaction coordinator or something, help with marketing or whatever it is. And so, maybe it's, for me anyway, that was the only way I could avoid burnout, because otherwise I was staying up till 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night doing paperwork, transactions, pulling my paperwork together, because during the day I was on appointments or on the phone or whatever it might be. So I didn't have time during the day to do some of that stuff. But I think, if you are feeling burnout, like you should hire somebody at least on a part-time basis or a per transaction basis, like immediately, to help you buy back some of your time. I think that's one of the things that I did early on. And as soon as I did that, it made all the difference in the world. And I think it can be maybe scary at first, right? Because in the beginning, right, you're a 100% commission-based person, right? And like, do I have enough money? Do I have enough sales? Do I have enough things to be able to hire this person or this thing? Well, if you continue to do that, I think you got to spend some of that money to buy back some of your time so that you can breathe and feel that avoidance of burnout, in my opinion. And also I think that's been one of my main motivators for trying to build a team-based business, because I believe that as a solo agent, it's too hard to service clients at a high level. I mean, if you've only got a handful of clients, maybe it's okay. But like, if you're doing 20, 30, 40 transactions a year or more, like you can't do that, I think, without a team or without at least 1 or 2 other agents you're partnered with that can help you so that you can go climb in the mountains, or you can go on vacation, or go with your family, or be home with your kids, right? Because if you've got, clients, the phone's going to ring, they still want to see those properties. And if you're suddenly not available or not able to hand that off to another team member, they're going to probably just go somewhere else. Like they're calling the next agent. So I mean, Tell me, how is your Schindler home team set up? How do you schedule, or how would you describe your team setup and makeup?
So, I mean, the inception of it was June 1st. So we're only a few days into that as well. I got to announce a brand new real estate team and a baby. So he came a little bit early, and we kind of had like a little dual announcement. So I do want to say though, like, because I know that I just have had a kid, obviously, and other responsibilities. Gauging like where you are, like in your life, like the first few years that I got started and I'm doing all these transactions, I had no responsibilities whatsoever. It didn't matter if I dropped my fork in my dinner plate and ran out the door for a showing. Like nobody was counting on me. No one was depending on me. Like, I didn't have a girlfriend or anything. Like,
important point, right? Like if you're getting into this business and you're married with 4 kids or 5, whatever, like you may have different constraints.
Your needs are going to be different. Your story's going to look different. So it's like, wow, like, dang, like I looked at people doing similar levels of business as me that are solo agents that had kids. And I'm like, man, I don't know how you do it. So again, everybody's got to run their own race. As far as like our team set up now, the goal is eventually, because I enjoy my creative aspects. The reason why I got to do as much business as I did in a short amount of time is I am a creative marketer. I know a lot of people in my market, so I really stand out and was able to get the phone ringing right off the bat, because why would you not call a 25-year veteran or a 10-year veteran and call some young dude to help you with the biggest transaction that you're ever going to do? And my answer to that question is, well, I'm going to stand out and they're going to call me because of that. So like figuring that all out, was kind of like a big part of it. And I got away from that with being how busy. So that kind of led to the inception of the team. So my idea basically and kind of goal with this team structure is that leads are coming in because of me and not necessarily to me. And so I still get to market. I still get to push the team. I still get to support the team and help them grow because of, all the knowledge that I've attained over the last few years of how this thing works. But then I get to go back out and be creative again and push our names out there, push the team name out there so that their phones are ringing. And again, it's not something that happens overnight. Like June 1st, I didn't get to just flip a switch and leads come into them now. There's still going to be this transitional period where I'm going to facilitate and nurture these people. I want them calling me. I want my phone to still ring right now so that I can assure these people that they're going to be okay once I pass them off to Casey or Troy, and that it's going to be a really smooth and easy process, and that, you know, I'm truly here. You know, I might be leading, you know, I'm still, or the team lead, but I'm still here to like help facilitate and be involved in the transaction as much as I need to be. So, you know, just, you know, like your physical presence, you know, you can only be so many places at once. So the team aspect alone for them being able to take appointments and run around, you know, is huge, because then you get to do those higher level things. And I can be on the phone all day from anywhere that I am, in the car, at my desk, you know, sitting in my living room, hanging out with my new little son and my wife. You know, it opens me up to a lot more availability, and you know, like you said, I think that you can serve your clients at a higher level because, you know, you're able to take notes, and, you know, it gets to a point where it's like, you know, I don't know how serious that lead was. I'm not really worried about them. If they call me back, they call me back. If not, I'm still going to sell 68 homes and, you know, whatever. You know, and now every single person can get the attention that they need and deserve. And, you know, everybody becomes better because of it. You know, the client gets a better service, and the agents, you know, Casey and Troy get more work, you know, sent their way, and which benefits me then as well. And it's just a well-oiled machine.
Well, I think that's an important piece too, because, you know, something that, you know, I've heard sometimes complains about actually is like some people feel, right, or even maybe it's a internal dialogue, right? It's, I don't want to just pass these people off, right? Like I want to handle everything, but at the end of the day, if you can reassure whoever it is you're working with that, like, hey, our intention and plan from day one is to be a team-based business, and we support each other in that. Like, I think that's a benefit for sure to the clients, and definitely a benefit to the agents, because they can, you know, feel like they can step out or take time off if needed, but also just knowing that, you know, those standards are being met, that those clients are being handled how you would handle them or how I would handle them, right? Like, we want to make sure that all of our team members are doing the right activities to be able to service our clients at a really high level, because I think that's where, you know, that customer service is totally important, and it can be kind of hard to sometimes let go, right? Because if you're used to doing everything, right, it's sometimes it takes some work or practice to be like, oh, I don't need to do that anymore. I gotta hand it to somebody else, or somebody else needs to handle my paperwork, or somebody else needs to handle this part of it. But, you know, there's very few things in the real estate business that can't be handled by someone else. And sometimes I think as a top agent or a top leader, you know, in the industry, we think that, well, nobody can do it as good as me. And maybe that's true, but, you know, if somebody else can do it at least 80 to 90% as good as you, and maybe you can help step in and add that extra 10, 20 or 30%, then that's totally a win.
Yeah, so, I mean, I was right there. I didn't want to hand it off. And luckily, like, my best friend is going to take the lead on the listings. And he kind of got me into real estate, you know, with just like his interest in investing and stuff like that. So was always very involved in it. And, you know, we were also running around together with commercial belt standers recently. Like, so I knew his work ethic. And so when he was ready to join up, it was a very clear thing. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to let go of that stuff. And I think one of the biggest things that helped me is, you know, obviously realizing like, okay, I have to do this now. Something has got to change. And then two, like you said, you know, as long as they can do it 80 or 90% as well, you know, one of my favorite kind of quotes or sayings, and whatever you want to call it, I've kind of adopted recently, or that has really resonated recently with me, is don't let perfection get in the way of progress. You know, like, we have to do things efficiently, and there are certain things that absolutely do not need to be perfect or by the letter or by the book. So don't do those things perfectly, so that you can do the things that do need to be done perfectly, and execute those things, and everything gets to keep moving forward so much smoother if you don't let the perfection get in the way of progress.
Yeah, no, I love that quote. Yeah, it was, I think the similar one I heard from, who was it? Dan Martell. He wrote the book, Buy Back Your Time. And it's it's written for entrepreneurs. So, you know, it could be people in the real estate business or any entrepreneurial business, but, you know, it's that delegation piece, right? And his comment in the book is that, you know, 80% done is 100% awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. And like, let's not just get in the way and think that we need to do 100% of everything. Like, we don't. And even if they can get it 80% of the way, and then maybe I step in and take it the rest of the way, great. Like, how much more can I do, and how much better can I do it? by having that be 100% awesome. I think that's great. Love that for sure. Well, cool. Well, we've touched on a variety of topics, a variety of things. What about for you? You said, I'm curious to hear more maybe about how you stand out, because it sounds like that's one of your strengths and one of your superpowers is like, well, I'm going to do my marketing that's different, or I'm going to do whatever. I mean, because at the end of the day, we're kind of doing the same thing, right? Like we put a sign in the yard and we market and sell properties, right? So what is it that you do that you think makes your marketing stand out that other agents don't?
I have a lot of fun, so
fun. I love that.
I'm a goofy, fun guy. I mean, I'm covered in tattoos. Like I just kind of naturally stand out. And, like having fun was a big aspect of it for me all along. Like I've always really enjoyed improv comedy. I always have really enjoyed, like Whose Line Is It Anyway? That was my favorite show to watch growing up as a kid. And in college, when I didn't really know what I wanted to do, I thought it would be really cool to work for an ad agency and design commercials or produce commercials. So I kind of brought that aspect over to my real estate business when I knew like, okay, so you got to stand out to get people to call you and want to work with a newbie. So yeah, I just kind of brought that over. And, I'm very lucky in the sense that like, I don't necessarily sit down and like plan things out. I will see something in the environment or hear a lyric in a song that like gives me an idea. Like there's like just stuff kind of in the ether out there that I look at or see or hear, and it springs an idea of like what I could do or how I could tie that into something. And for my first listing video, I wore a bathrobe and just, funny little.
What? You wore a bathrobe in a listing video?
I'm the robed realtor, was the robed realtor. And that was kind of my persona. And like, yeah, people just went nuts. I'm a hairy dude, so my hairy chest is hanging out and people went nuts about it. So I really leaned into that. I'd be singing in the bathtub, like some Shania Twain, all sudsed up. And so I just had a lot of fun and just did things differently to get people to like share.
All right, that's for sure unique. I mean, I can't think of any listing video that I've seen some guy in a bathtub and singing Shania Twain in the shower. No, that's for sure. I mean, not a lot of agents. I mean, I commend you. That takes a lot of guts, a lot of courage, I think, right? Like maybe but it stands out, right? Like I love that, you had the guts to kind of just go for it. You had an idea and you just went for it, right? Like how many agents out there, how many people listening to this that are just, maybe they have an idea, oh, I could do this, but I don't know how it'll be perceived, or I don't have my makeup on just right or whatever, but like, you just went for it, man. Like, you're like, oh, what if we do this? Yeah, this would be great. I got an idea. And like, you just went for it. So I think I got to commend you for that. That's good.
Thank you. Yeah, I always knew that, a listing video or an ad that I did would be really well received if my mom called me and told me that I had to take it down immediately because I was going to offend somebody. But, there's a flip side of that coin too. Like I've done some very risque stuff, with the bathrobe during Christmas time, I had the bathrobe open and a present, and the caption is work with a realtor. That's the entire package or the whole package, so like, but that's me, right? And
yeah, not everybody's going to do that. Yeah.
And it's like, oh wow, okay, yeah, I can do that to stand out. Like if that's not you, don't do that because it's not going to be well received. And I think that if you try and force something that's not you, people see that and they will get like, I'm surprised by how many people don't complain about what I used to put out. Just as much fun with it as I did because they realize that I'm just having a fun time and I'm a goofy guy and that's who I am. If you're not that person, it might not be received as well. So you have to be careful about how you stand out too. And like you can get crazy. You can go balls to the wall with it, but it just, it's the shoe has to fit your personality and then who you're trying to attract as well.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I think, my wife often says sometimes that I'm not fun enough, right? Like I'm sometimes too serious. Like I like to read books and I like to do whatever, sometimes I get locked into my focus and what I'm working on and all that kind of stuff. But I think there's something to be said about just letting your hair down a little bit more and just having a little bit more fun. So I'm going to take that cue and try to lean into that. Well, that's part of what I'm doing on this show, right? That's part of me just trying to be myself, show up, right? This isn't overly scripted, right? We came in to this show and part of it is just me showing up as myself. And I think, if we can just encourage one another to show up as ourselves and with that authenticity and, just being who we are, I think there's tremendous power in that. And there's tremendous value in, all of us kind of sharing with one another and just showing up as our authentic selves. So I think I really love that. So that's great. But yeah, be who you are, right? Like don't try to, put out a risque whatever thing if that's not you, if you're not kind of a goofy guy or whatever it might be. Maybe that's not the thing you need to put out there, but definitely have some courage and have some fun with it. And I think people resonate with that because that's what you experienced. We did a video about like riding, or there were some of the pros and cons of living in the Madison area, right? So we're in the Madison market in Wisconsin. And I think it's part of what you're saying, right? Is like, and we've gotten a lot of engagement and traction from it, but it's like, if you're not a bike rider, don't try to pretend you are, right? But if you are, lean into it. Lean into whatever you are. So I love that.
Exactly.
Nice. Well, cool. Well, we've chatted about a lot of things. Anything on your mind that you're thinking of that you think our listeners might value from in knowing more about either how you work or something that would be interesting for us to talk more about that our listeners might gain value from?
Yeah, I guess, kind of just going back to like the burnout phase and like growth. And, there's this really big, every time I log into Instagram, it's just scale this and do this and follow these steps. And, when I got started, there was a lot of agents and brokers at other brokerages that, are like, hey, this is what you need to do. This is how you need to do it. This is when you need to do it. And I think it's all a bunch of BS. And if you want to achieve 30 home sales a year and be a solo agent, then that's what you should do. If you want to sell 150 homes a year as a solo agent because you don't have any other responsibilities and you want to touch every part of that transaction and do it on your own, boom, that's success for you. If you want to start a team and grow a team. So just defining what you want for success, what you want your life to look like, what you want your business to look like is the key most important thing to realize and to understand from the very get-go, because otherwise you're not going to be happy. You're not going to achieve it. And there's just too many people trying to shove down your throat these days what business should look like. I think that it's very important to listen to these people, to grab nuggets, because these people have really great things to say and they have a lot, that they can teach and a lot that you can learn. But you have to understand that you have to run your own race. You have to have fun with it. You have to stand out. You do have to do things differently. You are going to have to work. Unfortunately, I spend a lot of time like, okay, what's the next easy thing? How do I do something that's easy? How do I make I have a bunch of rentals and, it's
here's the secret. It's not that easy.
It's passive income until it's not. And then it's an absolute nightmare. And, you can go back and you can look at, we're going to just use money as a ruler for, success as most people defined it. You can go back and look at how much money you've made and then also scratch your head, even if it's a lot of money, and wonder if it's worth it. So you truly don't get something for nothing. And it's important to realize, what you want so that you can make the best of it.
I love that you brought that up, right? Because I know, it's easy. I talk to a lot of really high level agents and team leaders as well. And, sometimes I think, we go to maybe conferences, right? You go to a big like Remax event or EXP or Keller Williams or whatever, some other training or coaching event. There's these big events, right? You see these big names and they're selling hundreds of homes a year and doing hundreds of millions of volume every year. And you think to yourself, well, if I'm, a motivated, hungry, driven individual, maybe that's what I want too, right? Maybe that's what I should strive for. And I think it's important to recognize, well, maybe that is, and maybe it isn't. Maybe that's part of your story, but maybe it's not, right? Like I know I've heard of many stories, especially in the shift in the market that we've been experiencing in the last couple of years, that, just because the volume might be here, their net income may not be there, right? It's very easy to sign up for the next widget, lead source, a portal lead, whatever. And if you're not running a profitable business, is it worth it? What success are you ultimately achieving? And I think, I've heard actually lots of stories where some of the most profitable real estate businesses can be maybe that single agent or smaller team. Maybe you have an admin or two or something like that. And if you're selling 20, 30 homes a year, but you have a little bit more life balance with some leverage, maybe that is the race that you want to run. And, I think it's getting clear on that, but also not trying to be delusional, just chasing the next, next house sale, next house big thing, because that's what the industry says you should do. Right. Yeah. But, I think that's important. So that's a good point. I like that. What does your ultimate success mean for you? I mean, it's, I think we have, it's funny you mentioned that. Actually, we have a part-time agent on our team who, for a long time, for many years, I wouldn't hire part-time agents, right? Because, I figured I was full-time, I was all in it, and I had, my ultimate success was to sell a lot more than what I felt like a part-time agent could do. But this agent who's on our team, she's a great agent. She's great with her people, but she's not going to sell 30 homes this year. She's happy with, selling a handful of homes this year. And if she can do that and help supplement her other full-time career, then she's totally good. And I think, it doesn't always need to be that huge number that we're shooting for, but, do we have the quality of life? Do we have the business that we want? But getting clarity on that and not being delusional about it, but let's have a little more fun doing it. I like that. Very cool. Well, very cool. Well, I like where this conversation has taken us. So, man. So if, what else did I have? Anything? Yeah. Well, anything else you want to share or chat about? Otherwise, maybe we'll wrap things up for today.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we definitely covered it, and again, I could talk all day. So I guess that being said, I'm sure that you're open and as accessible. That's why you're doing this. You want people to reach out and stuff. But same thing here. I'm truly here to help and inspire. And you don't do it alone. I've had a lot of people help, inspire, and mentor me, and right place, right time kind of situations and conversations. So if anyone wants to talk about hey, what help me figure out what I want. Help me. Yeah. What does this mean? How does this work? What does that look like? What does it feel like? How do you do it? Let's chat, because this is a career, obviously, but it's a passion and a hobby as well. And with the inception of the team, now I can really get back to being passionate and helping other people and doing the fun stuff and having these conversations.
All right. So before we sign off here, let's maybe dive into that. Let's for our listeners, if you were to say, what are the top 3 to 5 things that an agent needs to do if they are looking to grow their business this year? All right. I mean, we're recording this, it's June. The year is half over. If I am not on track for my goal for the rest of the year, what do I need to do to hit it? What do I need to do to grow? Top 3 to 5 things in your opinion. All
right. Well, obviously we've been talking a lot about hustling and working hard. You might have to burn yourself out. You might have to let some of that fun go by the wayside. You're going to have to grit your teeth and get it done, whether that's video marketing. So we'll do that as number 2. You got to stand out.
Video marketing, stand out.
Now, if you can't stand out, if the idea of being in front of a camera doesn't work for you, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and it's people are like, wow, you're brave because you're hopping on video and jumping in a bathrobe. No, I'm not. It doesn't really I don't have to have courage to do that. I like doing that kind of stuff. That's me. What you could be doing if you don't want to do that and you don't have that courage, pick up the phone, go knock on people's doors. I listen to all kinds of podcasts, agents that have incredible success and base their entire business around picking up their phone and knocking on doors, which to me scares the shit out of me. Pardon my language, but you will not find me if I have to make a call to a stranger, because I hate it. I don't like people soliciting me. It literally, you'd have to pay me money, and it'd have to be a great sum of money to get me to pick up the phone and call a stranger and try and earn their business. So stand out or pick up the phone and go knock on doors. So hustling hard and then sticking with it too, and being consistent, realizing that your path might not necessarily be what someone else's path may be. You could do all the things, you could execute it perfectly. You still might not sell 30 homes in your first year. You might sell more, but you're going to have to stick with it regardless, because, the goddess of good luck, favors the man of action. You have to do it. I got very lucky. I worked very hard at a time where it paid to be lucky. So yeah, consistency is also going to be key. So no matter what you're doing, whether it's working or not, you got to do it. I mean, you can't be pounding the square peg into the round hole, but you have to stay consistent with things that do work. And a lot of these things that top agents talk about in their podcasts and stuff certainly do work. So pick what you resonate with and make it happen.
For sure. Gosh, I love that. All right. So hustle, stand out, pick up the phone or knock on doors, even though you're not picking up and cold calling, right? Stay consistent. I love that. All right. Well, if I had to come up with my list, I think those are awesome for sure. I'll tell you the things that I would come up with. One is look at your morning routine. For me, my morning routine is so important, and getting up early and getting a workout in and getting, just that mental time to journal, reflect, get my day planned, organized. If you're not doing any of those things early in the morning, maybe that's something to change up. That's something you should do. The other thing that I would encourage you to do, second thing, I would say, get around others, right? So to me, I think what we talked about earlier and getting around mentors and coaches and other people that can help guide you and put you on the right path. If you have a desire to grow and you're not growing, then maybe it's time to change up your environment and who you're surrounded by and who you're talking to, and sign up for a coaching or get a new team leader or get a new mentor or get a new coach or something. Because to get that additional guidance, that additional person saying something, you might hear it in a different way. And I've always found that when I do that, boom, my things shift in my brain and things are able to take off to that next level for sure. And then I couldn't agree with more than the consistency, right? Consistency is super important. And for me is like, it's in the database, right? Being consistent with, to me, it's the phone calls. I don't mind making phone calls. I'll call 100 people without, it doesn't bother me one bit, right? Like, but I'm not singing in the bathrobe in the shower. So I'll leave the bathrobe videos to you. I'll be on the phone calling whoever. But, to me, being consistent in the database, because that's where business and, in my mind, conversion is going to happen. But you got to make those reach outs, follow up with those leads, those opportunities, right? If somebody sends an inquiry or you meet them in an open house or you door knocked them or something, right? They came into your world, now you just got to reach out and just see if you can offer to help. And that's all it is. If you can do that, I think you'll be well on your way to growing your business for sure. So cool. All right, man. Well, I appreciate this dialogue. I appreciate you spending some time with me. Yeah. And I hope we got some good nuggets for our listeners.
Good sound bites.
Good sound bites for people. So I appreciate you coming on our show and spending some time. So again, Colin Schindler, and I'm Josh Lavik, your host of the Better Agent Podcast, and that's our episode for today. So tune in next time to hear more from myself and other guests that I have talking about how to improve your real estate business, and hopefully we can help you do exactly that. So, and with that, we will sign off.
Thanks for tuning in to the Better Agent Podcast. I hope you found today's insights valuable. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review if you enjoyed the show. Stay tuned for more tips, Q&A sessions, and sneak peeks into our 21-day challenge. To get full access of our show notes and more details on the 21-day challenge, go to abetterrealestateexperience.com. Keep striving for greatness, and I'll see you on the next episode.